Okay, your eyes looked high.
That's kind of just always a thing that's happening. But dude, I decided to name this. I don't know if you noticed, but dudes can sit around and name old sports players and have the best time. I don't know if you've ever seen that tweet before. But what this is the Dolphins preseason edition. We're just gonna name some dudes, whether it's
Okay.
present, whether it's past, and if you want to try shooting your shot at some names from the future, go right ahead and do that. But that one's gonna be little tougher. But first, it's week one, fake week one, but week one, we're going with it. What's the ritual? Do you have anything going on in terms of food, in terms of preparation, in terms of where you're sitting? Does anything change?
Well, so preseason is a little bit different than the regular season. For the regular season, I will subscribe to Sunday Ticket, which is on YouTube TV now, which you don't have to subscribe to YouTube TV. You can just purchase the Sunday Ticket package separately, which I didn't know until yesterday when I was going to cancel my Direct TV and switch over to YouTube TV. But then Direct TV like begged me to stay and gave me some crazy deal and basically cut my bill in half. So if you're in the same boat as I was yesterday, anybody out there, anybody, watching right now or watching the recording of this, and you don't want to lose your Direct TV, just call and tell them you're going to cancel anyways because you want YouTube TV, and they'll be like, "Hey, what if we cut your bill in half for the next 12 months?" And you can go, "Yeah, okay, that sounds good." And then you can just get your Sunday Ticket. I think it's $400 without the Red Zone, which I know everybody loves Red Zone. I don't watch Red Zone because I watch the Dolphins games, the whole thing, whether they're being crushed by 30 points or not. I don't switch away. I watch it even before I wrote about the games, which now I have to stick around just in case something happens that I have to write about. But even before then, I didn't want to switch away. I just wanted to watch the train wreck as it was happening. So I never watch Red Zone, so I don't need Red Zone. But if you want to buy Sunday Ticket without subscribing to YouTube TV, you pay your $400 and you get the deal. So
what are you watching on Direct TV?
I am a nerd and I watch nothing but the
TBS.
History Channel, essentially.
Big Bang Theory.
I watch a lot of Ancient Aliens. I'm a big alien dude, so I watch Ancient Aliens. I watch the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. I watch The Proof Is Out There. And then I really do.
No wonder you can believe the Dolphins are going to win the Super Bowl this year. It all makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, dude. I've been a big alien buff since the early '90s, and back then, like you would catch some shit for being a believer in UFOs and aliens. But like as of late, it's turning out that I might have been on the right side of history all
made
along.
It cool. I think you were in the train at the right time. I think ET's when people were kind of like, all right, if they're gonna be ET aliens, yeah, we're in. I think that's where everything kind of changed and set the tone for aliens in general.
I thought you said AT aliens for a second. I thought we were talking about some old school Outcast albums, but but no, like I remember very specifically in like 91 or 92 checking out a little book about UFOs from my school's library and like everyone in my class making fun of me. You believe in aliens? That's not true. That's dumb. That's like believing in Santa Claus. Hopefully I didn't ruin that for somebody's kid just now, but aliens are real and Santa's not. Who would have guessed?
So the question was, do you have anything planned for tonight? I forgot where that path led, but I'm going to bring it back and ask you again.
The preseason's different because I have to scramble to find an illegal stream of the game somewhere online before it starts, and you always got to go through like 2 or 3 of them until you get one that like kind of works. Mm-hmm. It's like those channels in the 90s that you'd turn on with all the snow and screen, and you'd see like an outline of a beautiful woman in the background, and you just hope that it cleared up for just a second so you could see something special. That's kind of like what it is finding these illegal streams on the internet now for these preseason games. So I'll have it for the regular season, but preseason I'll still be doing that. Tonight I'm gonna grill a little bit. I'm gonna man the grill. I'm gonna crack open a cold one or two, and I'm gonna watch this game and hope that we can discern some things about the Dolphins backups, because it's sounding like a lot of starters won't be taking the field tonight, but we don't know that officially yet.
Have you heard anyone in general?
Anyone specific? No, but I'm trying to remember who was hinting at it online. One of the beat reporters was kind of hinting at it online that it's not going to be a heavy starters night for the Dolphins, very specifically all the defensive studs. And then, your key offensive members to Raheem probably won't play. Obviously, Tyreek and Jalen's a little banged up anyways, so he probably would have sat regardless. But I'm very curious to see how many offensive line starters take the field. And obviously these rookies. I want to see some Devon Achane, some Cam Smith, maybe even get some Elijah Higgins out there. One rookie we never talk about is Ryan Hayes. So that just continues the trend of drafting offensive linemen who never do anything for the Dolphins. He was a 7th round pick, so I digress. But that's what I'll be doing tonight. What about you, Jake?
Are you sticking with the 4 out of 5? You think 4 out of the 5 offensive linemen are playing tonight?
You're referencing the latest episode of another Dolphins podcast that we were on a couple days ago with our buddy Josh Houts, where I said 4 out of the 5 starting offensive linemen would play tonight. I think I've bumped that back to 3 out of 5. So I think I'm still ahead of you guys. Yeah, I think Teron Armstead and Connor Williams will sit, and I think we'll see Liam Eichenberg / Isaiah Wynn. We'll definitely see Austin Jackson, and I do think we'll see a little Robert Hunt tonight, maybe just for a series.
What if Connor Williams sits and Eichenberg's at center?
I would be interested to see that because, I mean, at this point, if you can make Eichenberg a football player anywhere on this team, then that's a win because he's clearly not taking a hold of that left guard job and not letting it go. Like, he's doing the opposite of that right now. Everybody's getting their.
Well, you don't want to. It's called holding, man. You'll get 10-yard penalties.
I mean, if he's getting holding penalties this season, that means he's on the field, and that's already a win for Liam. But I genuinely think Liam Eichenberg is losing that starting left guard spot maybe tonight, and I think Isaiah Wynn's going to grab it, and I don't think he's going to let it go.
I have the 2012 depth chart open right here, the first 90-man depth chart from 2012. I think it's like August 9th. I'm going to give you 4 of the 5 starting offensive linemen because they were the guys who were starters week 1. You have Jonathan Martin at right tackle. You have Mike Pouncey at center, Richie Incognito left guard, Jake Long at left tackle. The right guard who came to start that game and most of the season is 3rd string right now. What's his name?
He's 3rd string right now?
In 2012 on that.
In 2012. Chart. He was 3rd string then, but he ended up starting for most of the season at right guard in 2012. So 11 years ago. You're asking a man who's had roughly 60 concussions in his life to remember who the 3rd string / eventual starting right guard in 20. I can't even begin to give you a guess. He
played on the Giants. I think he turned to a left guard with the Giants. I could be wrong. Still maybe a right guard.
McKinney or something?
John Jerry.
John Jerry, there you
go. Jerry.
Big John Jerry, who was abysmal for us and then went to the Giants and was like average. Doesn't that happen to us every time? That's a Billy Turner story right there. That's a Juwan James story right there.
They never really had those offensive lines didn't have those guys that could kind of raise the talent around it. I think those Packers offensive lines where Billy Turner had some pretty good guys at center and left tackle.
Coaching.
Also shout out the number 2 right guard on this depth chart, Nate Gardner, the original Jesse Davis.
There he is. There he is.
So let's try to lay out the offensive line, the starting offensive line tonight. Who do you think plays the most snaps? Because at left tackle, you got to assume it's Kendall Lamb, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think they like Kendall Lamb a lot, and I think he's going to be the swing tackle this year. So I don't think he's going to get a ton of run. Gosh, I really could see it being Liam Eichenberg getting the most snaps tonight because they're going to give him they're going to throw him into the deep end and they're going to say sink or swim, big boy. And if they have to throw him that life preserver so they can pull him out of the pool, I think that's going to knock him out of the starting lineup for this upcoming season. I think Liam Eichenberg is going to play a lot this preseason. I think they want him to be the starting left guard so bad, very specifically Chris Greer, because he doesn't want to be wrong about that. He traded up for Liam Eichenberg.
He jumped over him to get him. I think.
Yeah, like come on, like that's just. It's it's sad at this point. It's really sad. And I think if we had a very capable starting offensive line, I think we'd all, as Dolphins fans, be a little bit more cocky going into the season. I think we're already kind of cocky as
Oh
is.
yeah.
But if
Oh yeah.
this offensive line was, a strength of the team instead of a very glaring weakness, you couldn't tell us nothing as Dolphins fans. We'd be singing the fight song where they're talking Super Bowl all season long.
See, but it's important to keep in mind it's not as simple as let's just have a good offensive line. For instance, I'm going to go right back to 2012. That Dolphins offensive line was pretty good with Incognito, Jake Long, Pouncey, especially when they're on the field. They had to give up some talent at wide receivers to have that. They no longer had Brandon Marshall. Instead, it was Chad Johnson, Brian Hartline, Legadou Nene, and Devon Bess. So
I wish Chad Johnson wouldn't have, committed the crime that he committed. We don't have to bring up specifics here, but
right in the
I
middle
was
of Hard Knocks, right? I think
right in the middle of Hard Knocks. I was so excited to see him on that team. I've always gravitated towards the personalities that conduct themselves like pro wrestlers in the game because it blends my two worlds. And I was just so excited to see Chad Johnson play for the Dolphins. He's a fun player, but he was really good too. He's a good football player. So unfortunately, that didn't happen. And then we were all riding the Legadou Nane
were we
hype
all?
train. I was. I was a heavy Twitter user in 2012, and very key people on Twitter were telling me how good he was in training camp. And you know what? He probably was. He probably was really good in training camp. But there are those players who perform really well in practice, and then when they get on the field, they can't back it up. And then there are those players who are terrible at practice, and then as soon as the games are live, they're world beaters. So unfortunately, we got the latter with Legadou Nane, and he didn't pan out for us.
Marlon Moore, Roberto Wallace were my two go-to wide receivers to yell about on Twitter. Those would be my guys. Like they're gonna figure it out. I think Roberto Wallace was the original Devontae Parker. Rashard Matthews was a 7th round pick in 2012. Big fan. He talk about a career, man. He ended up getting a second contract with the Titans. I'm pretty sure after that game against Houston. It was the first play. I think it was a slant and then 86-yard touchdown. Man, I was at that game. That was so much fun to watch. But I mean, that's kind of what the issue is, right? You sacrifice a Richie Incognito and you get a Jalen Waddle type of thing. It's I don't know if it's really as simple as just throwing stuff at this offensive line because you keep seeing it on Twitter, man. Dalton Risner is the new guy that everybody wants the Dolphins to bring in. He's out there liking tweets. And if you're liking tweets, that's called campaigning, man. Apparently he'd be okay with going to the Dolphins, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, if he's okay with going to the Dolphins on a cheap contract, I'm okay with the Dolphins signing him because I think he has some position versatility and I you hate to give up on the young guys, but it's kind of it's shit or get off the pot time for Liam Eichenberg, for Austin Jackson. And so far it's been some pretty mixed results for Austin Jackson, which is actually kind of encouraging when it's mixed results instead of just a big plate full of crap. But conversely, Liam Eichenberg has been serving up turd burgers all training camp long, and we as Dolphins fans are tired of eating them. So, you got Isaiah Wynn for that left guard spot, but I wouldn't be upset if you could get Dalton Risner in on a cheap deal. He was serviceable in Denver.
You kind of think back to last year too, right? During the preseason, I think Trey Flowers was a preseason addition. Mackenzie Alexander is another one that comes to mind. So this is going to be a group that is active. And so I'm curious, when you look ahead to tonight, who are some of the starters you think that might be Chris Greer, Mike McDaniel might have that watchful eye on and thinking, hey, do we need to talk about a free agent at this position?
Yeah, I think you're looking pretty heavily at that offensive line, like we mentioned. I hate to keep harping on that. I don't think you're going to see any other offensive starters take the field. Maybe Durham Smythe, but I think you kind of,
even if it's the other guys, I think it's kind of interesting watching Kraft.
Yeah, Croft and Saubert there. By all accounts, Saubert's had an abysmal camp too. Just has looked awful like every day, like every single day.
The game guy. He'll
Maybe
have a 60-yard reception tonight. Just watch.
Maybe. I hope he does. I mean, I'm not that type of Dolphins fan that like gets happy when our players perform poorly, like whether I like them as not. Like that has always confused me. And obviously, there's all those Tua haters out there, but it's like, as a fan, why would you root against any player on the team? Like any player at all? Don't you want them all to succeed? So I would love it if Saubert succeeded, but by all accounts, his training camp has been pretty poor. So you might see some of these tight ends play. Durham Smythe, Tyler Kroft, Eric Saubert, Elijah Higgins gets out there. So I'll be keeping an eye on that, as well as that offensive line. On the defensive side of the ball, I want to see how this safety group shakes out behind Javon Holland, because you got a few guys. Verone McKinley III, he was here last year as an undrafted free agent, former college teammate of Javon Holland at Oregon. And he did all right. He wasn't an all-star or anything like that, but he wasn't terrible on the back end, and there might be a little something there. At the very least, a practice squad player for the Dolphins, but who knows? He could find himself on the 53 if he has a good preseason. They brought in Deshaun Elliott. That's somebody that you can take a look out at there. I doubt we'll see Brandon Jones tonight. I don't think he has shed that red non-contact jersey at practice yet, so I doubt we'll see him. Will we see Trill Williams? He's a very intriguing player. Last year, before he got hurt, he was one of the top camp performers, according to everyone in attendance. And he's made a few plays here and there in this training camp as well, but he is coming off of that ACL injury. It is a position switch for him, going from corner to safety, which I think he played a little bit at Syracuse in college. So he's trying to knock the rust off there, not just from the injury, but from the position switch. So I think that safety position is an intriguing one to look at. And then, we talked about this on ADP with Josh, but that interior defensive line depth, that's another spot we got to keep an eye on and see if guys like Brandon Peely and Jalen Twyman can man that role behind Christian Wilkins, Raekwon Davis, and Zach Sealer, or if the Dolphins need to dig into their pockets and pull out some cash to sign an Akeem Hicks, a Linval Joseph, an Ndamukong Suh. But those are the things we're looking at here, and that's what makes this game, if you are a true diehard Dolphins fan, that's what makes this game kind of a must-watch tonight. You haven't seen them play in 8 months, and you also get an opportunity to evaluate some of these, I don't want to say troubling positions, but, the more interesting position battles that are kind of up for grabs, because this is probably the most stacked Dolphins roster we've ever seen. So for the first time in a long time, we don't got to watch like every single position to see how it's going to shake out. We only have to watch a couple, because there's most of these position battles are pretty much set in stone right now. What are you going to be looking for tonight, Jake?
When you go through a couple off seasons of signing guys like Bradley Chubb, Tyreek Hill, sending out these big contracts, you got to let some of those middle class guys go, and that's where you really lose out on just some of that roster depth. And just to go back to safety, not just safety, but I think about that Eric Rowe role. I know that this defense is going to be very different. Vic Fangio's, that heavy zone, but he's someone who still uses 3 safeties on the field. How crazy is that? You think about how Jalen Ramsey is a defensive back. So when I look at that battle, man, it's really about versatility, who can kind of step in and play both roles. And this is also a defense that Javon Holland played in college. And in college, I think you even mentioned this before, he was used as that slot cornerback. So you wonder if you're going to use Javon Holland as that Jalen Ramsey type positionless player, and all of a sudden you want to have 2 guys you can have back there in safety and trust both of them.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Even with the Jalen Ramsey injury, this is a pretty loaded secondary, and you got a lot of young, cheap talent that's outperforming their contracts. I mean, namely, you look at Kader Kohou right there. What a revelation he was last season, a much-needed revelation after the Byron Jones saga lasted all year, and he didn't play a single snap for the Dolphins last season. You thought you got that situation figured out by bringing in Ramsey, then he tears his meniscus. So now it thrusts Kader Kohou back into another very prominent role, and we'll see if he is going to kind of stick at that slot corner spot for right now while Ramsey's out, and we'll see who mans that outside corner spot. It sounds like right now that Noah Igbenogany is being given first crack at it, and that he's actually kind of doing well in this zone-heavy Vic Fangio style system, which I don't think a lot of people predicted. I mean, he didn't really give you a lot of splash plays to lead you in that direction his first few years in the league. But I think a lot of people pegged him as more of a man corner than a zone corner coming out. Now he struggled in his man cover role, but has actually done decently well if these reports are to be believed as a zone corner in training camp so far. And I am going to be watching him very closely tonight. He'll be out there for sure. I'll be watching him very closely to see how he performs in the game. You know, if things go well for him, this secondary could end up being loaded sans Ramsey, and then when Ramsey comes back, like, oh boy, it easily could be the best secondary in the National Football League when you got Xavier Howard, hopefully a healthy Xavier Howard on one side, Jalen Ramsey on the other, Kader Kohu, Noah Igbenogany in the slot. Cam Smith is in there, who has also been having a great camp, according to reports. He's in there as well. Like, this could end up being a major strength of the team, maybe the best position group on the team outside of the wide receiver room.
You just missed a player. Did you just call out someone to be cut right there? You didn't mention a cornerback that I was even going to ask you about.
Did I forget somebody?
You forgot somebody.
Who did I forget? Eli Apple.
You forgot two people. That's not even.
Oh man!
Talk about. Wow.
Who else did I forget?
It kind of speaks to the depth there, right? When you think about it. Nick Needham.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I guess I forgot about Nick Needham because he's still coming back from that.
Yeah, when do you get a little
Achilles,
nervous?
Right?
Yeah, when do we want it? Like, obviously you want to hear good stuff right away, but when do we want to hear something by until we're thinking, oh no, is this something that maybe he'll be on the PUP to begin the regular season?
Yeah, I think he will. I think he'll start the season on the PUP, which means he misses the first 4 weeks, correct? He could come back week 5. And I think as long as, and again, knock on wood, I feel like I do this every time we chat together, but as long as this secondary doesn't suffer any more injuries, I think the Dolphins will have the luxury of allowing Needham to come back a little more slowly. The Achilles injuries are really tough. Though people will tell you an Achilles injury is one of the harder injuries to come back from. You can come back in about a year, but they usually tell you you're not at 100%, you're not at full strength until about year 2. So if Needham comes back, he certainly won't be at that year 2 mark, and he might not be where he was pre-injury, but he was a pretty solid player, especially in that slot corner role for the Dolphins. And if he can come back, that's another, cherry on top. And then, like you said, we didn't mention Eli Apple, so we're going from cherries to apples here. But Eli Apple, a veteran, it's a whole fruit bowl. It's a fruit salad in the Dolphins secondary here. But Eli Apple is a veteran in this league. He's played in some meaningful football games. He has playoff experience. I believe he was on that Bengals Super Bowl team, wasn't he? Where they lost to the Rams. So he has Super Bowl experience. He's got a swagger about him. A lot of people on the internet will tell you that he's toast. They always put up the picture of the burnt toast on the screen. But he's been making some plays in training camp as well. He has a very, very, very small amount of money guaranteed on his contract. So he's certainly not a lock to make the roster, but he could provide some of that veteran depth, that veteran presence behind a Xavier Howard, behind a Jalen Ramsey who's injured right now. The rest of the guys are really young and really inexperienced, besides Nick Needham, who's had some game experience. So maybe they value that veteran leadership, that veteran experience from Eli Apple. Maybe he sticks around.
I have the 2015 90-man depth chart right here.
Okay.
Can you give me the 3? It's a 4-3 defense. Can you give me the 3 linebackers? 2015.
Is Vince Beagle in there?
Oh, Vince Beagle's a nice name, but nope. I think Vince Beagle was a little later than that.
Like maybe yeah, you might be right.
I mean, there's a Mike Hall, a Zach Vigil, and a Jordan Tripp, which is basically all of Vince Beagle. Like when you
this is an amalgamation there. You get a Vince Beagle after you put him in the blender. I'm really bad at this game. I'm very, very, very bad at this game. Do we have a Philip Wheeler?
No, Philip. No, that's crazy, right? 2013, you signed Philip Wheeler, Darnell Ellerby. There it is. And 3 years later, neither of them are on the team. 2 years even. One of the linebackers is still the same from that time. I don't know if that helps you at all.
Okay, so Jerome Baker.
Nope.
No, then I'm lost. I have no idea what we're talking about.
Jelani Jenkins.
Okay.
The second one I'll give here, they're listed as a middle linebacker, kind of thought more of an outside linebacker. Injury issues kind of really derailed his career when he had like one good season, had a decent amount of tackles, I think.
This is 100% wrong, but just another random Dolphins linebacker, Koamisi.
That's it?
Hey,
You got
okay.
it.
For
The
some reason,
third
I
one?
thought Koamisi was like 2012, 2013.
The third, yeah, he was still just kind of like just holding on here in 2015. I don't even know how often he started. I'm not going. Kelvin Shepard, I think he ended up taking his spot at the time.
Okay, yeah, Kelvin Shepard.
Spencer Paysinger. The third starting linebacker on the first depth chart. This is going to blow your mind, and I'm going to give you the best hint. There are 3 guys on this defense. This is why I was. If you saw me going like this was me making sure all 3 are on the team. There are 3 guys with the same last name as him
on this team right now.
Yep.
Oh man, what's a common last name for this team right now? It's got to be Smith, right? Smith, or is there a Thomas? Is there a? It's got to be a very common last
3
name.
guys. There's a safety, a cornerback, and a linebacker, all with the same last name.
On the team right now?
2015.
Oh, safety, cornerback, linebacker. I have nothing.
Chris McCain, Bobby McCain.
Okay.
McCain.
Oh man, Chris McCain was like the young undrafted rookie,
the lanky pass rusher.
Yeah, he came out of nowhere, and his like pregame routine was to like sprint around the field or something like that, like as fast as possible. Just a weirdo like that, but like cool. Like you were like, all right, we struck gold here. We found a diamond in the rough, and then it wasn't to be.
Let me tell you this. Dudes can sit around and name old sports players and have the best time. I'll tell you that right now.
I love doing this with 90s basketball for some reason. I was a huge basketball fan in the early to mid 90s. I could do this with 90s basketball players all day, every day.
2000 baseball players. I could probably name you the entire AL East if we really wanted to get really, really ugly with all that. Hey, what about special teams tonight? What are we going to see out of that? You know what? We look at the Dolphins last year, and I think if we look at the Dolphins 2 years ago, actually look at the Dolphins the last 5 years, since we've lost that special someone in that special teams room, Darren Rizzi, they have really struggled to be a impactful group there. So what are you looking for? Who's going to be returning kicks? Is Jason Sanders going to make us non-easy? I don't think, but nice. I can't think of the right way. Is he going to be Pepto-Bismol? I'll go with that.
If Jason Sanders could nail like a 51 or 52 yarder tonight, that would lower my anxiety level for this special teams unit considerably as we head towards the regular season. I would absolutely love that. I'm interested in, this is how much of a derelict I am. I'm interested in seeing Jake Bailey. I want to see this dude punt. I want to see if he can return to his all-pro form before his questionable back injury in New England, a back injury that saw him get they were trying to sue him, right? They were trying to take his signing bonus back, and then it was a whole big mess there. I want to see Jake Bailey. Kick returns. Barrios, I think you'll see some Barrios tonight. A-Chain, you'll see some A-Chain as well.
Is this going to be the Devon A-Chain? Is this going to be like the coming out party, that first video? What we're going to use, let me paint it this way. Is this going to be the game where he has that one clip, that one run where we're all posting it, tagging the Dolphins account for the first 4 weeks of the season because he's still not getting any touches?
This is the game where Houts posts a 90-second video on his blue check marked X app and gets 20,000 impressions on day one,
just like that.
And then all the other guys snipe his video without giving him credit, and he gets really mad and he tweets at him, or zeets at him. I think he's calling it zeets at him. Says they get in their little online battle here. This is the night. I think A-Chain is he's gonna be featured tonight. I think he's gonna be RB1 tonight because you're not gonna see Mostert, you're not gonna see Wilson. I think A-Chain gets to start. I'm excited to see what he can do. I don't know how many carries he'll get, or how many series he'll play, because I think he does have a role on this team. I think he has a prominent role on this team if they don't sign a Dalvin Cook, because I think Devon A-Chain just has that extra level of burst, which is crazy to say when you also have Raheem Mostert in that same backfield, one of the fastest players in the NFL. But I think, he's younger. Obviously, he has fresh legs. I think he's got that extra level of burst that maybe the other guys don't have. I think he's been showing off his pass catching ability, which is awesome. I know the Dolphins want to do a little more with the check down game this season, which should help Tua stay healthier and maybe avoid some of those boneheaded turnovers that he's prone to at least once a game. But I think A-Chain, I think he will have a prominent role, so maybe he only gets a couple series tonight. But I think you'll see him do something special tonight, either as a pass catcher, a runner, or a kick returner.
I'm trying to figure it out, and I still think it's going to be like 6 weeks before you see him get a lot of touches. I could see him just seriously being like a 5-snap guy, at least for the first couple of weeks, and just kind of slowly integrate him into the offense. I'm just going to make you hate me by the time we're done here. I have the 2019 first.
Let's go. Well, we're getting closer to 2023, so I might be better at this.
Running back. The starting running back, there's 2 of them. They're listed as an or. It's not like Mike McDaniel where he had 2, like last year it was Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert. This year it was a flat out or between 2 guys.
In 2019. So Is this Kenyon Drake?
Yep.
Kenyon Drake and Lamar Miller was gone.
He had the fastest run in the entire league, I think, in 2018. And that was like everyone freaked out, like he's going to be awesome, drafted in fantasy. It was against the Minnesota Vikings. I even remember that.
This should be very obvious. I'm not sure why it's not. Is it Jay Ajayi?
No, he's gone.
He had been gone. He's in Philadelphia, possibly.
Yeah, I think in 2018, the middle of the previous years when he was let go.
Frank Gore?
Kalen Ballage.
Oh my God! I was so high on Kalen Ballage. I really was.
There it is.
and I would sit there on YouTube and watch his Arizona State highlights.
He had like the 9-touchdown game, I think.
Yeah, and I'm like, all right, he runs a little too upright for me, but maybe they can coach that out of him. And just so stupid. I know Alf from 3 yards per carry was huge, a huge backer of Kalen Ballage, and so I went and watched the tape. I dissected the tape, as much of a tape head I am, and liked what I saw. So that should tell you all you need to know about my tape watching ability.
There's 3 tight ends listed as starters. 2 ors, I should say. It's
okay.
person or person or person. Give me the 3 starting tight ends in 2019.
Okay, so Mike Gesicki.
Yep.
Durham Smythe.
Yep.
And
it's a curveball because the way this unit ended, there's somebody who just came off the top rope and had a huge impact, but he's not this guy either.
Really?
This guy, he's you can connect his family to the Dolphins. I'll give you that.
Very interesting.
Irish.
Oh God!
You just said the first letter.
O'Shaughnessy. Oh, wasn't there a tight end named O'Shaughnessy? O'Malley. I'm lost.
O'Leary. Nick O'Leary.
Oh yes. His uncle's Jack Nicklaus, right?
Yep. I think so. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let me see. There was one other. Oh, speaking to that too, it was so weird how that group shaped up because Adam Shaheen came in. And all of a sudden, that tight end room, I think in 2019, set records for most receptions, touchdowns, and yards from the entire tight end room. So Let me get a name from you. Who's a tight end who, whether on the team or not, who could come off the top rope this year and had some sort of an impact? Might not be like a 50 reception type, but all of a sudden you got 17 receptions, 3 touchdowns, and maybe 120 yards.
Yeah, I look at Elijah Higgins here. I think I do. I don't. Yeah, he seems to have progressed in that regard, which is good. I don't think anyone's sitting here telling you it's starter level worthy blocking yet. Maybe you get to that at some point in mid-season. They always say that tight end's one of the harder positions for rookies to grasp during their rookie season, and he wasn't even a tight end in college. So now he's got a position switch and has to learn the tight end role. But I just don't think Mike McDaniel gives a shit about tight ends. I just don't think he cares. I don't think you're going to see any 2 tight end sets this year. I think you're going to have Durham Smythe on the field all the damn time. And if you get Elijah Higgins in there, it's because he's faster than Smythe, probably has a better catch radius than Smythe, probably has better hands than Smythe, and he might be used in you know, the red zone a little bit, maybe a big body type. Our receivers are smaller guys, shiftier, quicker guys. So you want to get those bigger bodies out there in the red zone. But he could be, fingers crossed, a slightly less impactful pass catcher than Mike Gesicki, but a slightly more impactful run blocker than Mike Gesicki. So you might get a little bit less on the pass catching side, but a little bit more on the run blocking side. And I think Mike McDaniel would actually prefer that in his tight end. So I'll give you Elijah Higgins as a mini breakout candidate at tight end.
And two, I mean, the way this offense operates, it doesn't absolutely need a tight end. Like, right, when you have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, the usage on that, the volume is so great. And then you got Alec Ingold, who I think is going to be someone who really has a nice bounce back season.
And that's like genuinely like the same position. Fullback and tight end is the same position. You just line up on different parts of the field.
Fullback short, a little shorter. That might be a difference.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they are the running back in the running back room, but they basically do the same things.
I like that. Yeah, even I think tight end is one of the most interesting positions to watch, not only because there isn't that solidified starter. I think someone really could even upend Durham Smythe as that maybe down to down guy, and them still both having a role. But looking at that group, it's all veterans, right? You mentioned Higgins, but outside of that, there's going to be a lot of guys out there competing against, 20, 21-year-olds. And Eric Saubert, I think the Dolphins were posting pictures on Instagram about this guy just looking absolutely huge. So it's going to be interesting to see, the Skylar Thompsons of the world and the Mike Whites of the world try to get these tight ends involved who already know kind of how to operate in the NFL compared to all these guys who might still feel like it's going really fast for them.
I don't think they're done in the tight end room. I really don't. I think they're going to see what they got in guys like Croft and Saubert, and I think they're going to go, you know what? Nah, that's not what we want here. And I think they're going to go shopping after some guys get cut. Maybe some veteran depth there to play in front of the young guys, Tanner Connor and Elijah Higgins. But I just don't think anyone has separated themselves, at least behind Durham Smythe, at least in training camp. Nobody separated themselves yet, and I think the Dolphins aren't going to be done there. And much like you saw them get rid of an Anthony Montalvo in the defensive line room so they could bring in a Deshaun Hand, a more veteran presence there, I think you're going to get that in the tight end room as well. And I know Croft and Saubert are veterans, but I just don't think they've liked what they've seen so far from those two. So I think instead of just sitting pat with them, I think they're going to look for an upgrade elsewhere. I think OJ Howard is still out there, right?
OJ Howard's out there. I don't know. I just wonder if they're just going to kind of sit with it. You're not going to be able to upgrade every position. I mean, throughout this, you've spoken about a defensive tackle addition, a offensive line addition, maybe even another addition here. I just wonder where's the line. Or I also want to ask you this. Tanner Connor, he hasn't really been on the field, right? He's still been coming back.
Yeah, he's been injured.
When he comes back, would it surprise you to see him maybe even jump up to number 2 tight end right away?
I don't think he's coming back. I don't think you'll ever see, I don't think you'll see Tanner Connor play for the Dolphins again. I think his injury, if you kind of read the tea leaves and read between the lines, at the beginning of training camp, Mike McDaniel was asked about 4 guys who were injured, 4 guys who were on the PUP, and in what order do you think we'll see them? And I think he said you'd see Teron Armstead first, and then I think he said Nick Needham, and then whoever he said third, I can't remember. Actually,
Jones might be in that.
Possibly, yeah. So I think we saw Jones ahead of Needham, but then he listed Tanner Connor last. And if Nick Needham's coming off of that Achilles and he's going to start the season on the PUP, you would imagine that means Tanner Connor is also going to start the season on the PUP if he makes it that far, and could actually go beyond that. And maybe he doesn't miss just the first 4 games. Maybe he misses 5, 6, 7, 8 games. And I think if that happens, they're just going to cut ties. I think they're going to say, it was an experiment. It didn't work out. we'll see you later. Maybe we can sign you back to the practice squad or something like that. But I don't envision a future for Tanner Conner on the Dolphins, and I'm starting to think that maybe Mike McDaniel doesn't either. And I think the drafting of Elijah Higgins is another kind of read between the lines move where it's like, oh, okay, well, this is our new tight end project. This is our new experiment here at tight end because Tanner Conner's just not going to cut it.
One last question here before we start to wrap up. How about Braylon Sanders? What do we need to see out of this wide receiver group for someone like him to be that guy who jumps up and all of a sudden, I think back, I could go to some of these depth charts, Allen Hurns, Butler, what's his first name? Butler, he was on the Colts for a while, I think. He was another receiver who came in. Greg Jennings is another receiver who came in. There have been scenarios where these late round picks have jumped up and kind of made it tough for some of these veterans. So what does Braylon Sanders have to do when you're going against guys like Robbie Chosen, Braxton Berrios competing for that roster spot?
Well, first thing he has to do is stay healthy. And he had a little injury scare. I think I read, or maybe Mike McDaniel even said that it wasn't a super serious injury, wasn't of the season-ending variety, so that's good for somebody like Braylon Sanders. They were clearly high on him last year. I don't think he did a lot when he was on the field. I don't think he maximized his reps, but he has stuck around. He is a little bit bigger than Tyreek and Jalen, so that works in his favor. He's got some speed to him as well. When you look at that wide receiver room, though, that's a tough lineup to crack. Obviously, nobody's supplanting Hill or Waddle. They brought in Berrios for a reason. Ezukama only in his second year, and every time he gets a bad rap online.
He's going to be a tight end, or play that receiving tight end. I think
like that Trent Sherfield role, maybe.
Yeah.
Every time he's on the field, he makes something happen, and it's pretty special. I mean, look back to last preseason. Ezukama and Skylar Thompson, that connection there was on fire. So maybe we get a little bit more of that tonight. That'd be fun to watch. But I don't think he's gone either. So there's 4 locks. And then you got a Robbie Chosen who's has a very specific skill set, but he has been a number 1 wide receiver in this league in the past. And to me, that's a pretty valuable thing to have. And I know a lot of people are predicting he doesn't actually make the squad, but I don't know. If I was coaching this team, Robbie Chosen, for as little as he's being paid and the skill set he brings, and God forbid, and again, I got to knock on wood, and I hate to even do this, and maybe I won't name names. Maybe a receiver who's nicknamed after a jungle cat. What happens if he gets hurt and you need that speedster that can go deep and get you those chunk plays, or at the very least take the safety with him and open something underneath in the middle of the field where Tua likes to eat? If you get rid of a Robbie Chosen, who's filling that role besides a Jalen Waddle? And Jalen's the guy you want to get the ball to when Tyreek goes deep anyways, So I'm keeping Robbie Chosen on this roster. So that leaves you with 5 receivers. Are you keeping 6? Is that 6th receiver a Braylon Sanders, or is it somebody else? Is it a River Craycraft? Where do special teams fit into that? Do these guys
said Wilson?
I think you have to at this point based on how much he's being paid. So there's another guy. He's number 6 there. So I think that leaves guys like Craycraft and Sanders on the outside looking in, but also, I think it probably comes down to those 3 guys, Chosen, Craycraft, and Sanders for that 6 wide receiver spot. And I know Craycraft and Sanders are going to give you some special teams there. And Craycraft is probably the direct understudy to Braxton Berrios and his role that he's going to have on this team. But I just look at the skill set that Robbie Chosen has, and I really like it. He's come on strong the last 3 days of training camp. I would like to find a way to keep him on this team as some Tyreek insurance, but also Tyreek, Waddle, and Robbie Chosen on the field at the same time. I mean, pick your poison, dude. The amount of speed in that lineup is just absurd. And I would love to see some 3 wide receiver sets with those guys and try to watch these DBs figure out, who's going deep, who's going shallow, who's crossing over the middle. Like it's wild. It's wild to think that could be a 3 wide receiver set for the Dolphins this year. Easily the best 3 wide receiver set in the league if that does happen. And I think the only team that rivals that would probably be the Bengals.
They weren't kidding when they said dudes can sit around and name old sports players and have the best time. This is a great way to prep for the game. I hope everyone out there, thank you for tuning in. Hope you have a blast watching the game. Take some notes, try to put together your 53-man depth chart. Try to even put together a practice squad if you're that crazy. But yeah, as we get closer to the season, we'll start to do this more and more. So thanks for tuning in. Until next time, fins up.